My boyfriend says things that make me scared and uncomfortable. He becomes angry when I point them out. I have been dating my boyfriend for 2 months. He is 32 and I'm 19. We've been having a great time hanging out. I like him a lot. The only thing that's been bugging me a bit is that when he references any woman, a celebrity, co-worker, or even his cousin on one occasion, he'll say something intimate and borderline creepy. Something usually along the lines of how hot they are, and how he would turn into Joe Goldberg for them. The other night, I went to bed and he joked that he worried he wouldn't sleep if he couldn't his pee down because of Margot Robbie from a show we just watched. I thought I should be honest and say something. Hey, can I be honest with you about something? I get uncomfortable sometimes because it seems like every time you bring up any woman, you see them in a weird light. It makes me worry that you see me as an object or that I'm just a notch on your belt, which is fine if that's your prerogative, but I need to know that. I offered to sleep on the couch if he was uncomfortable with me saying that. He was quiet and got up and I found him sleeping on the couch, in his own house. I tried to tell him to sleep in his own bed, but he asked me to please just let him sleep. In the morning, he was short-tempered and offended. We've talked over text since then. He sees this as me accusing him when he hasn't done anything to warrant that. He says I'm projecting from relationships with people 10 years younger than him, and said that this clearly wasn't going to work out if I was going to try and police his language. He thinks it's concerning that we've been seeing each other for such a short amount of time and that I unloaded on him at 1 a.m., and that it triggered his fight or flight. He said he's uncomfortable being alone with me now. I've apologized for hurting him by bringing our relationship into it, and explained that I thought I was being transparent and honest, but he said it was seriously insulting and said that no other woman he's dated has brought it up as an issue, which I didn't find to be a solid argument, because everyone has different preferences or levels of comfort with this subject matter. For context, he really is very sweet and caring. That night he'd stayed up watching an entire season of a show with me because it was important to me. I loved it and I thought he'd love it. I think he's taken it slow physically because he's respected a potential power difference. We didn't even kiss the first few times, we just slept next to each other and were affectionate and cuddly. He's admitted that he likes me and likes being around me even at work, which felt big because I know he's not great at being emotionally vulnerable. I've tried to reciprocate whenever he is to show him that I value how hard that can be. I asked a few friends co-workers for their thoughts yesterday because I was with them, and they each thought it was a valid concern. One said it's like when you tell someone what they said was racist and they're defensive instead of receptive to change, and the other said that he thinks he's been having a bit of struggles with self-esteem and vulnerability. They also brought up that he might see himself as having more life experience and thus being right, even though there isn't really a right or wrong here. My boyfriend says things that make me scared and uncomfortable. He becomes angry when I point them out. I ended up dumping that mother effer. Everyone in my life who thought this is a major red flag and this guy seems like a creep was 100% right. I was lonely and stressed at the time, had standards that were way too low and was a people pleaser and a pushover. I'd been in an abusive relationship when I was a young teenager, which does not necessarily teach you the signs. If anything, you're more prone to similar relationships in the future. This dude was definitely beginning the emotional cycle, and I am so lucky that my time with him was brief and casual. If I had to pick, one of the most disturbing things he did after this was repeatedly playfully saying that if I got pregnant, we'd have to get a shotgun marriage, with a prenup to protect mommy and daddy's money of course. Same dude who insisted on raw dog or no dog, thank God for IUDs. Anyway, we briefly saw each other some more after, but pulled away because I was heading back to college soon and simultaneously realizing that being thirsty didn't mean I should drink poison. I spent my last few weeks in town smoking grass and playing Mario Party with my awesome work friends. I had one last lame hookup when I visited a couple weekends after classes started and it just reminded me how much he sucked. He would still try to text me for a little while after that, and I wish I could say I was a badass and reamed him out, but I just gradually ghosted him. I came back to work around the holidays and I got looped in that he was pursuing a relatively new hire, a 17-year-old girl, and when I talked to her I found out he made up some bullcrap that painted me as a crazy ex-figure, so I showed her receipts of me ghosting him and his general douchebaggery. He did a whole boo-hoo, I feel so guilty, so she struggled to pull away at first too, but thankfully succeeded. She didn't make the mistake of dating him, but still ended up getting the baby joke threats.
What's the dumbest thing you've ever done when absolutely baked? I smoke a lot. Usually the equivalent of 4 J's a night, and every so often me and my wife will take brownies to start it off before we smoke. A buddy of mine stopped by my work 2 days ago and we talked for a bit. He's leaving and he asked me if I want a brownie with 500 milligrams. I thought that may or may not be fun, let me find out. I pop the brownie 15 minutes before I leave work and drive the 5 minutes home. I talk to the wife and the kids for a bit and everything is great. I go outside with my wife. We smoke a bowl and marinate nicely on the couch for an hour. Everything is perfect. I mean, I'm baked as giraffe nerds, I'm seeing in Swedish and smelling colors, but that was the point, right? Kids go to bed, we snack a bit, and decide to smoke another bowl as well as eat a brownie of our own. We come back inside to watch some TV. I take a shower and it is one of the best experiences I've had in my life. I could feel every molecule of water on my body. However, looking back I realize I tried to pass out multiple times while I was there. I get out and throw some sleep pants on, returning to the living room with my wife, both still as baked as a fresh out of the oven chocolate chip cookie by grandma. We talk, watch a Vin Diesel movie and decide to go to the bedroom for a little private time. I remember thinking to myself, these brownies ain't all that. This is when the effing bear reached out and tried to take my soul, word to David Goggins, with his sticky little claws. My reality and everyone else's reality at this point do not exist fully together. I'm told this is the first time I will bounce off the floor. I know as I pull myself up and know instantly that the night is about to go bad, so I focus on my wife who always means the world to me but right now is my everything. I try to pull myself together and talk to her. Then I turn around and find the source of all the current problems. I never name this entity that torments me for the next 2 hours and have no memory of a visual. But according to my wife, he was a huge piece of crap and an a-hole. Those everyone are my words. Apparently I swung at this entity for 10 minutes straight while screaming only to collapse on the floor after and rejoice as I have defeated him. But then he gets back up after being defeated. I see this and scream, "You're not taking any of us," and the fight is on. I start throwing punches and then crumple to the floor. My wife rushes to me and helps me up. I'm able to focus on her and be fine, but anytime I turn my head I'm convinced someone right there is going to take me or my family, since every time I look away I'm screaming, "You won't take me, my kids, or especially her." The fight rages a few more times with me fighting this thing in my head, but every time my wife touches me I let her control my actions, placing me on the bed or holding my arms behind my back as I cuss and degrade this entity. Whenever I'm looking at her I'm able to regain my sanity for a bit. Every time I can see her I'm telling her how much she means to me. I start to pull it all together. I remember looking at her saying we should have intimacy, that way I can focus, reboot my brain and I can stop this bullcrap. Pulling from all the past bad experiences from half as much grass, thinking I knew exactly what was going on. My friends, I did not fully understand the level of effed up I was, because now I am fully unclothed and for some reason, oiled myself up, and the fight is on. I am gladiator style fighting this thing, balls swinging in the gentle breeze. I allow my wife to control me again and we lay in bed. I would lay there trying to calm myself only to find myself on the floor over and over. My torso is bruised all over from bouncing off the end table. After this point I knew what was there for me, since he was pulling me off the bed and trying to pull me with him through the floor. I remember pulling myself up off the floor trying to escape with the entity pulling heavily on me. Fighting with every bit of my strength, screaming that I won't effing go and it wasn't strong enough to take me. I'm sure the wife is beyond sick of me at this point, but she is an amazing person and just tried to calm me and be my rock over and over. Then standing unclothed and oiled up at the end of the bed, bleeding from a self-inflicted cedar trunk wound on my shin, I start talking. This, everyone, is the end of my world and I'm not letting it happen. I'm gonna argue my way out of it so I can stay and protect my family. My argument? Indecipherable to any human, including my wife, but I cried and yelled a lot. The entity, by the way, is still a huge piece of crap. Then realizing I wasn't dying but the universe that revolved around me was crashing like a computer program, I accepted my fate and laid holding my loving wife. I laid there, with her consoling me, lying to me that it was just the brownies. I waited for the end of all existence. I felt my racing heart rate calm and stop. I felt her heart stop with mine. I flowed through the cosmos as different feelings in a pitch black out of body experience. This time right here with my wife holding me almost made it worth it. Not really, but I did enjoy it. Then I woke up yesterday extremely sore, still kinda baked, and went to work. I came to grips it was just the brownie and for the first time in about 2 years did not smoke last night.
An entitled Karen who I don't know demands I babysit her kid. So Karen moved into the apartment next to mine a couple of weeks ago. Karen has struck up short, polite conversations with me just 2 times in that period, with the second being yesterday, the day before this whole fiasco unfolded. This morning at about 9 a.m., while I was having breakfast, someone started aggressively banging on my front door. When I answered, Karen was standing there with her daughter, a 5-year-old girl, who had a little backpack on. Sounding very flustered, Karen said she was sorry to have to ask this with no notice, but could I please watch her daughter for a few hours, because Karen had somewhere really important to be. Now, something you need to understand about me is that I have no idea how to deal with them. Like, I tense up and get super awkward if a kid so much as waves at me in the supermarket. I am also disabled. She uses a motorized wheelchair sometimes and a walking cane for short distances or when she's just pottering around her own home. I live with my boyfriend, who is also my carer. My chronic illnesses involve fainting spells and a lot of brain fog, so by my own account, I'm absolutely not someone who should be left in charge of a child. Karen has seen me using my wheelchair and my cane, and has seen my boyfriend, who was at work when this all happened, helping me in and out of the car. So I responded with a firm no, explaining that my medical conditions meant that her daughter would not be safe in my care and that I'm not well enough to have any guests in my home, anyway. Karen immediately flipped from pleading and simpering to hand-on-hip indignation, at this point, accusing me of faking my disabilities and threatened to report me to Centrelink if I didn't watch her daughter for her. Never mind the fact that I am not on welfare. My boyfriend has a high-paying job and I work somewhere between part-time and full-time hours from home most weeks. So I basically said, I'm not on Centrelink and I don't appreciate being blackmailed. Find another babysitter, because I am not IT. And closed my door. Karen kept banging on the door for a bit, but eventually left. About 20 minutes later, I heard a very faint, timid tapping on my front door. If I hadn't been so close to it, I probably wouldn't have heard it. I sighed heavily, having kinda already guessed what was happening. I opened the door and there was her daughter, who had clearly been crying, clutching the shoulder straps of her little backpack. She said, Very softly, Mummy said I could stay here today. Now, like I said, I cannot stand kids, but her daughter was an absolute darling throughout this entire fiasco, and the most she ever did was cry, because her mother is clearly a goddamn monster. Karen had driven off and sent her daughter to my door, clearly thinking that if she left me with no alternative, I'd just play along and babysit her daughter for her, anyway, especially since I had literally no way of contacting Karen. Wrong. I escaped abusive parents at a young age, and this made me furious. I got her daughter settled in front of the TV with a drink and some snacks, and called the police. Yeah, my neighbor just abandoned her 5-year-old daughter outside of her apartment, and the kid showed up at my door, asking to come in. When the officers arrived, I told them the full story, and while they were appalled, they weren't surprised. One said, "You'd be shocked at how not rare this kind of thing is." Which is honestly kind of the worst part of all this. The officers took her daughter with them and were really sweet with her, explaining to her that she wasn't in any trouble and had done the right thing, and that they were there to look after her and find out where her mummy had gone. I found out later that they were able to contact her daughter's father, who is currently working on finalizing a divorce from Karen, and was also appalled, but not remotely surprised by what she'd done. Here's hoping he gets full custody of the poor kid after all this. An entitled Karen who I don't know demands I babysit her kid. This morning, I had another knock on my door, only it was the dad with Karen's daughter in tow. He went here to apologize for what his ex had done, and so he and the daughter could thank me for looking after the daughter and for calling the police. I said he seemed like a good guy who was clearly putting his kid first in all this, which was really reassuring to hear. He told me that, according to his lawyer, me calling the police and handling everything the way I had would basically be a gift-wrapped custody battle win for him, because what kind of court would ever grant Karen custody after the crap she'd pulled? His lawyer was over the moon when the dad called him. I also asked the dad what had been so important that Karen had abandoned her own daughter over it. You guys ready for this? It was an appointment at a nail salon. She'd brought her daughter several times previously and just demanded that the staff babysit her, and refused to even acknowledge the kid during her me time. When she'd called yesterday morning to book a last-minute appointment, the staff put their foot down and told her she could no longer bring her kid to her appointments and would be refused service if she did. The dad also said that Karen had shown up so late to the appointment that they'd refused to see her anyway. So she abandoned her daughter because she wanted her me time, getting her nails done. The dad told me that me time is an excuse Karen uses to ignore her kid, basically any time she feels like it. Do not talk to me during my me time. The dad also asked me if I would be okay to help with his custody battle. He said he understood that my health isn't great and that his lawyer had said a written statement would be fine. He said while it probably wasn't essential, since they had the police report, he wanted to have as much evidence on his side as possible, just to be sure. Of course, I agreed. Karen hasn't yet shown up at my door to scream at me, so I'm thinking maybe dealing with the police put some actual fear of consequences into her. We shall see.
My wife's psychotic obsession is driving me crazy. My wife is obsessed with John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States. He's her #1 crush. She is obsessed with the entire Kennedy family. I probably know more information about the Kennedy family than I do about my own family, just from hearing her talk about them all the time and overhearing her watch and rewatch every Kennedy-related documentary and movie that's ever been produced. Seriously, she's seen every single one, and is always moping about how she's seen every Kennedy-related thing ever made, and she wishes there was something she hasn't seen yet. If I accidentally mention that I haven't seen a particular Kennedy film or documentary, she's like, "Great. We're turning it on now." Then she gives her own commentary over top of the whole thing. The top man in her life is JFK. She has a framed picture of him on her vanity in our bedroom, so he watches us all the time, even when we do the deed. He's her phone background too. No pictures of me anywhere. She even talks to the picture sometimes. We have a framed picture of the Kennedy family on our mantle. Yes, the mantle in our living room that everyone sees. But it was a gift from her sister, so it must be displayed. Last year for Christmas she asked for these Kennedy-related Christmas ornaments. I did buy her the one she really wanted. Towards the end of Christmas I could tell she was getting a bit sad that I apparently hadn't listened to her heavy hints and bought her this ornament. Her Christmas was thankfully saved when I produced the ornament at the end of the night. Over half of her presents from everyone were Kennedy-related. She openly tells me, in detail, about her intimate desires involving JFK. He's the main person she fantasizes about. If she doesn't seem very into doing the deed with me, her actual husband, all I have to do is put on my JFK voice, which I have perfected, and she'll usually cave. I did have to put my foot down when she started talking about doing me with a back brace on. Why would I marry her when her heart clearly belongs to a man who has been dead for 60 years? This didn't all come out in full color right away. When she did start mentioning her crush on him, it wasn't concerning. Whatever, he was a stylish guy, had great hair, it wasn't the craziest thing I'd ever heard. She told me tonight that her list of favorite men is JFK, JFK Jr., and Bobby Kennedy. Then me. I'm fourth behind 3 dead men. Her intimacy toys are all named after those guys. Her dog is named Jackie O. Now she's planning out a Kennedy tribute baby name. Her engagement ring just had to be from the same jeweler as Jackie Kennedy's ring. I did that for her and I still can't rise above Bobby Kennedy to be #3 at the very least. If she buys me one more thing that is something that JFK wore, I don't know what I'll do. Well, I'll probably wear it or use it because it makes her happy.
rest of his life with is likely to die young unless they lose weight.